Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady checking in with a weekly garden tour. As you can see, the broccoli that I planted in, I think November, is ready to be harvested. In fact, it's probably about 3 days later than ideal, but I was out of town. So I'm going around collecting all of it. I'm going to make a delicious broccoli meal for dinner tonight. Well, I can't wait to show you all that's going on in the garden. It's been exceptionally mild. There's actually like 80 degrees in this week's forecast, which is completely crazy, but that's just the reality of weather now. And there's just so much to show you. So let me turn this camera around and let's get started. Well, as you can see behind me, our unusually warm February temperatures are resulting in an abundance of blooms. And I have just walked around and made some of the most beautiful floating flower arrangements that I have ever created. I have so many different camellias in flower. All of the hellebores are in bloom. The Edgeworthias are in full flower. I can't wait to show you them because they look like little balls of sunshine. The forsythia is flowering. All the different cherries are in bloom. The magnolias are flowering. Everything has definitely kicked off and we're having an early spring. And you know, I was just thinking about it. I bet if I looked back at last year's weekly garden tour at this time, I was saying the same thing. And so I do think our reference for what's unusually warm is still sort of dating back maybe 20 years when we definitely had different weather patterns. But I would say for the last 5 years, this sort of abundance and mild temperatures in February isn't that unusual. And even though it feels wrong, it's just probably our reality. However, in contrast to that reality, I am going to be flying to Iowa this week for the Northwest Iowa Home Show. And I'm really excited about it. And I'm going to get to see my good friends, Kelly Norris and David McKinney. And I purposely hadn't looked at the weather forecast until today. And now I'm completely freaked out, you guys. So the day that it's going to be record-setting mid-80s here in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina, it's going to be a high of 12 with a low of -12 where I'm going in Iowa. And you know, I don't own a single article of clothing that's appropriate for that temperature. So I was trying to figure out how to deal with it. And I've just decided when I arrive, I'm gonna go to a thrift store and I'm gonna buy a bunch of really warm clothes, and then I will donate them after I'm finished when I'm returning home. Because there's no point in me buying that sort of stuff here and then having to pack it. And to be perfectly honest, the stores in North Carolina don't sell clothing for those temperatures. So please send me warm vibes mentally. I was hoping very naively that Iowa would also be unusually warm like we are, but totally not the case. All right, let's get busy walking around, you guys. Well, you can see here in the foundation landscape that I do need to do some cutbacks on all of the Carex. I'll confess I've never cut these Carex back, so the fact that I have to do it this year is not really a big deal. But here you can see Edgeworthia in full bloom. Now this plant is a good example. This is in a fair amount of exposure here, and the branches lower and closer to the pond that of course retains heat are in really good condition, but the branches that are upper, these actually all were damaged from that holiday freeze when we went to 11 degrees. So you can even see just a microclimate in action here just with regard to flower hardiness on Edgeworthia. And across the way in the big Cottage Garden border, you can see all of the daffodils are really starting to come to life. I couldn't believe when I got back in town how many were already in bloom. And it's really great. You can see self-sown poppies have gotten really, really large. Anemones have been perennializing for me and are in bloom. These were planted 2 years ago. I'm hoping and I'm seeing, yes, that the agapanthus is actually going to come back. I had some reservations about planting agapanthus in the ground because of hardiness and also because of winter wet, but that's a really good sign there. And overall, you know, it's pretty amazing how bulky everything is getting. Certainly the bachelor buttons are really stretching, and well, it's full on spring. At this stage, I'm getting a little worried that this stuff will be done by the time I have my spring open garden on Saturday, May 13th. I'm joking. I don't think that it actually will be, but you know, it's the thing about gardening and setting dates. It's really, really hard to predict. Well, over on the side property border, you can see we've got the sod cutter. And when Aiden and David get home, we are going to start on a new project. So look for those videos. I can't believe how much better this border looks since we mulched it, of course. And you can see Hellebores are in bloom. That's Hellebores foetidus. That can be very seedy. So I always just cut these stalks down and bring them in to enjoy as cut flower arrangements. Also got lots of hybrid Hellebores in bloom, and these were bred to be 99% sterile, so that's a nice quality, so I can actually leave these blooms on the plants and not worry about getting a lot of seed set. And you can see the yellow, different forsythias are bursting into flower, and actually we've even got leafing out on plants. The Viburnum bituense, you can see, is totally starting to leaf out, as is the Viburnum macrocephalum, and tons of flower buds on that. So that'll be blooming again in really no time. The wave bed is coming along. It's still not as dense as I think it should be, and that worries me. I probably need to do some rehabbing on the soil, but you know, it'll be what it is for this season. It's pretty impressive from that family room window up there, which is where I was sitting on the couch all day yesterday, completely exhausted from my 5-day trip, trying to get back in the groove of travel after, you know, going on 3 years of having a pretty chill schedule. Really pleased to see so many carrots. I've been telling people about how well carrots do just as a self-sowing ground cover, essentially. No one believes me until I show them pictures, but you could see, I mean, they're just absolutely incredible. I love their ferny texture, and look, this crazy warm spring weather is making some of them already start to bolt and bloom again. So it's just, I mean, it's just the craziest cycle that I never would have anticipated, but I love it. I can't say enough about it. Growing carrots is such a good idea. Well, you can see here the Prunus subfertila variety autumnalis rosea is in full bloom. I'm having a bit of trouble getting my camera to focus on it. Oh, there we go. It's such a beautiful flower, and you know, it just looks great. It was really blooming right before the holidays, and the cold weather knocked a lot of the buds off, but it's totally compensated now, and it's looking really nice. And behind that is the winter honeysuckle. This is Lonicera purpussii, and it smells so good. I really wish smell-o-vision existed so that everybody could enjoy this. I always bring this in. I had it in the Airbnb over the weekend for the people who were staying there. I always put it in the bathrooms, and it's just so much nicer than having like fake air freshener. You know, to have a real live plant providing natural fragrance. I think that it's really quite special, and the bees are all over it. It's a busy time in the garden for insects. Well, you probably remember this Prunus incisa Shikazaki from the Ralston Arboretum tour, and you can see mine is in bloom. I have done a lot to manipulate its size because I didn't put it in the right place. And along the north side of the house, you can see the Dragon's Blood quince is starting to flower there, and October Affair has just burst into bloom. So many flowers open on it. And Royal Velvet is just starting to flower. I actually didn't harvest any of these for my floating arrangements, but you can see lots of flower buds in action. And of course it is officially like full-on hellebore season, and I can't keep up with all the hellebores that I need to pluck off to eliminate seeding. But I love this patch of all white blooms, and behind that is Camellia japonica Jax. And my plant doesn't look super great because I had it overcrowded, but this is usually the variety that, for someone saying like, if I could only have one camellia, what would it be? If you live in zone 7 through 9, Jax is usually what I would recommend. It has beautiful dark green foliage, amazing formal double pink flowers, and a ton of them, as you can see. Hopefully I'll be able to get this plant rehabbed now that I removed some of the trees that were really causing it to be overcrowded. Making our way into the backyard, I've been harvesting a lot of daffodils to use in flower arrangements inside. I love having them. Bringing flowers inside the house at this time of year is something I really love. You can see the cabbage patch and violas are doing pretty well. I hope these cabbages will end up heading. With these unpredictable and super warm temperatures, sometimes they just don't really do what they're supposed to do, but hopefully they will. And of course you can see the sunshine blue blueberries are in flower. This is a variety that I don't really recommend for North Carolina. It's better for Florida, for warmer regions. It doesn't need as much of a cold chill. It worries me to have flowers this far ahead, knowing that it is only mid-February and undeniably we will still have cold temperatures. And you can see this has really suffered from disease over the years. It's smaller now in year 12 than it was when I planted it. So I instead recommend planting powder blue blueberry, which is what this side is. And you can see these plants are much taller, but they're also nowhere near as advanced in flowering. So just better for, you know, the reality of this climate, so that you don't potentially lose all of the flower buds and therefore have no fruit. And I'm just noticing I've had this one random lavender for a long time, probably 8 years. Never knew the name of it. And I was like, okay, I've got one lavender plant. But look, we've been so wet and it's totally just doing what lavender does. And you can see I've got like one branch that's still alive on it. So go ahead and remove that. No point in getting mad every time I see it. The grains and the violas are literally blowing my mind. I mean, is there anything more beautiful? I don't think so. I am so excited to see this flower display, and the greens I just think are so interesting. I hope everybody will be inspired to do these at some point in their gardening lives, because it's so unique and easy, and I just think the reward is really off the charts. Well, you can see nice big broccoli here. I'm gonna let that go, but I don't remember what cultivar this is, but I'm encouraged to see that it's setting lots of baby sprouts. So even when I do harvest the main head, there will be other branches to harvest. And you can see this is one of the bushel and berry varieties that really has held its foliage, and it has lots of flowers starting, not as far as advanced as that sunshine blue, but farther ahead than powder blue. Same thing over here with this variety. You can see lots of flowers coming on these. These are dwarf blueberries from Bushel and Berry. Well, self-sowing is king, and I cannot get over, obviously, lots of larkspur here. Look at these self-sown poppies. I mean, they're enormous. Look at that leaf. You know, I mean, it'll definitely be a record if these bloom like in February or March. God, I hope they don't. Same thing goes for all of these self-sown poppies with a whole bunch of vetch mixed in. My lord. I'm not going to do anything about it, but God, vetch. Ugh. If you're wondering what vetch is, it's this. And I mean, it's a thing. There's no doubt. But look at how big these poppies are. I've never had poppies this size this early. And yes, it does make me nervous. But hopefully they'll be hardy. Even if we do have cold weather, which we don't have any cold weather in the forecast. So probably don't need to over anticipate. Well, as we come back around here, someone kindly wrote to me that it's now not Mount Aso, it's Mount Aso, which of course makes more sense. Sorry, sometimes 21 years in the South, I kind of give it a southern wording. But I love this plant irrationally. I think it's one of the most beautiful things that's ever existed, particularly at this stage. This is also called the Japanese pink pussy willow. You can see why, because the catkins have sort of this pinkish hue. And what can I say? It's a glorious plant. I don't know why it isn't more readily available, because it's easy to grow. And I think everyone should have it. And just to pan over here, of course, the poppies are enormous. And it's pretty amazing to see how big the ones that I sowed right around solstice, I think I did these December 22nd, how big these poppies have gotten. I do think it's going to be a great poppy display for the spring open garden. But I have a feeling that we will be having poppy flowers much earlier. Usually I don't let garden clubs come in April because it's so boring. But this year it might actually prove me wrong. Well, across the way you can see this snow cream Edgeworthia it's in full bloom now. It's extended. Those flowers are full round, so fragrant. It's incredible just the difference in a week, especially a week of super warm weather. Really excited to see that. And I was also really happy to see that the Arnold Promise is starting to flower. Usually this is something that is more like mid-March instead of mid-February, but no denying that it is starting to bloom, as are the star magnolias, which I have here, sort of in this funny hodgepodge of trees and shrubs, and another little cherry whose name I have forgotten, but a sweet little bloom. And of course, lots of camellias in flower. I'll show you some more over here. This is the time of year where the woodland looks really colorful from the front door. You can see the crimson candles is starting to drop a lot of its blooms. And all of these camellias have been harvesting flowers for floating arrangements. The real show here is Camellia japonica Happy. This is a Hugo variety. Higos are selected to have these really wide single petals and then these really full stamens. They look like, they were actually intended to look like Prunus mume flowers. And there's a whole bunch, like over 300 cultivars of Hugo selection camellias. I think they're really extraordinary. And this is just one variety, but this is a variety called Happy. And here I wanted to show you a comparison again of what I call Edgeworthia Pepifera. Everything about it is super tiny. Look at these sweet little blooms. And then compare it to Edgeworthia Chrysantha. This one's a little bit behind some of the ones that are out in more exposure, but you can definitely see how huge those flowers are compared to the Pepifera. And you can see this is Gold Rush Edgeworthia, and it is also, the blooms have they've really opened up a lot in a week. And of course the Hellebores look amazing. They are so beautiful. I love this double one. I think this is like orchid or something. And I love collecting these for floating arrangements because, you know, they are nodding down. You can't really see them. But when you float them, you can fully appreciate their beauty. Okay, guys, I haven't even walked over here until just now. Are you ready to see the big Edgeworthia? Look at that display. It's so incredible. The fragrance is really, it's truly undescribable. It's something that I just wish these were hardy everywhere. I know this is a zone 7 through 9 plant. And I don't mean to tease people that live in colder climates, but this is actually a reason just to plan a trip to North Carolina at this time of year so that you can experience the amazingness of Edgeworthia Chrysantha. Truly, truly, I think one of the most remarkable plants that gardeners can include in your collection. Well, and you can see all the plants in the back garden are filling out great. Again, this really simple solution for deer browse has made a huge difference. And you can see the poppies are developing really well. Again, I think I know these are California poppies here, and these are Reese poppies here. That is a breadseed poppy. So 3 different varieties all growing in the same area. Along with that, you can see there's cilantro germinating, and of course vetch, because it wouldn't be my garden if it didn't have vetch all over the place. Up in here, you see the poppies, lettuce, and tulips are all growing really well. And it'll be a welcome sight when I come back from Des Moines and it looks like spring here, because I bet by next week at this time, everything will be twice as big, especially after having some temperatures in the 80s. Well, everybody, I've got my big yellow bags of veggie mix from Soil Cube delivered. We are ready to get started on a brand new garden. I can't wait to have lots of great videos that will post all week long, despite my insane travel schedule. And I do sincerely look forward to sharing another update right here from my Zone 7 garden in Central North Carolina next week. I'm wishing you all the best, and thanks so much for watching. Happy gardening.